So we've just learned that the U.S. district judge that's demanding all these questions be answered vis-a-vis the Venezuelans that were sent to El Salvador in the middle of the night, he's just extended the deadline, and he's told the Trump administration, okay, you have until noon on Thursday to answer all my questions. He wants to know exactly what time the planes took off, why they didn't turn around on his order. And you've got the Trump administration saying, you know, buddy, you're way out, like totally out of line, because we are making the determination that this group of Venezuelans were a security threat, and we have the right to do that. Of course, they're enacting this Aliens Enemy Act of 1798. So now a new question has sort of emerged. Why is this judge doing this? Is this really just about law and order, or is it about trying to take down the Trump administration? Because a lot of people keep pointing to this use of lawfare, right? So it comes into question now just exactly who he is. Laura Loomer's been doing some reporting on this. She has actually said, you know what? He actually has a daughter that works for one of these NGOs that provides all these legal services to members of TDA and MS-13, et cetera, and is funded by government grants indirectly by USAID. That's her accusation. You also have the New York Post with its reporting pointing out that Judge Boasberg, that is, has shown evidence of bias before. They specifically point to the case of, remember, Russia, and Comey's use of the FISA warrant, and how did they get that FISA warrant? It came down to this one guy, Kevin Kleinsmith, who basically forged some emails and some documents, and as a result of that was able to get that FISA warrant on Donald Trump, the whole Carter Page thing, right? Like, it's taking us back a bit, but that's how that all happened. And so that ex-FBI lawyer doctored these documents, and somehow they gave it the stamp of approval, and this particular judge was lenient, you could say, on him, because it was suggested that he serve prison time, and instead this judge, Judge Boasberg, said, you know what, you're only going to have to serve 12 months of probation, 400 hours of community service. You will not have to go to jail. And so some are citing this as evidence of bias. I mean, there's some other things out there that say maybe he's not that bad because he didn't demand that Donald Trump's tax records get exposed. I don't know. But right now, I think, like, it's fair to say, like, there's been a lot of focus on how do we stop, instead of, you know, maybe sort of acknowledging that the State Department and the administration probably has a right to determine if there are threats to the state, foreign threats, right? In the case of these people that were coming in from Venezuela, a country that is not exactly our friend, shall we say? I mean, not exactly our friend. I'll tell you, it's very interesting, though. A lot of people say, who the heck cares about this judge? I've said over and over again that in the court of public opinion, there's one winner and one winner only, and that's Trump, because nobody wants these people here. You don't want criminals in your neighborhood. Tom Homan says he's not going to stop any of this. He doesn't care what the judge says.
Another flight every day. The teams are going to be out there every day. Every day, the men and women of ICE are going to be in the neighborhoods of this nation arresting criminal, illegal alien, public safety threats, and national security threats. Lawrence, you're not going to stop us. We made a promise to the American people. The President Trump has made a promise to American people. We're going to make this country safe again. I wake up every morning loving my job because I work for the greatest president in the history of my life, and we're going to make this country safe again. I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I just love seeing you going.
Forgive me. That's an interesting statement. And actually, it was 268 detainees, I should point out, that have been deported to El Salvador, something that Pam Bondi keeps going back to and saying, you know what? We're safer as a nation as a result of this. And she's also pointing out that, you know, the judge doesn't even have the right, in her opinion, and again, this will be debated in court, but he doesn't have the right to be asking such questions given where Marco Rubio has come out on it. Let's listen.
Bring in Jay Town now, former U.S. attorney.
Forgive me, let's go with Pam Bondi.
Let's start, if we might, from the decision by Judge Boasberg. Tomorrow is your deadline to answer questions. Those questions include the following. What time did the plane take off from U.S. soil? Where did it leave from? What time did it leave U.S. airspace? And what time did it land in a foreign country? You have, 4, 5, 6 questions the judge wants answers to regarding the details of those flights over the weekend. How will you respond at the Department of Justice?
Well, Will, our lawyers are working on this. We will answer appropriately, but what I will tell you is this judge has no right to ask those questions. You have one unelected federal judge trying to control foreign policies, trying to control the Alien Enemies Act, which they have no business presiding over. And there are 261 reasons why Americans are safer now. That's because those people are out of this country. The judge had no business, no power to do what he did. And Will, he came in on an emergency basis on a Saturday with very, very short notice, if any, to our attorney to run in the courtroom. You know, and this has been a pattern with these liberal judges. You just spoke about that.
Again, Pam Bondi getting it, one, the pattern that you've seen with the liberal judges that are trying to take, in her estimation, Donald Trump and the administration down. And second of all, back to the root issue here, which is, does a judge, a U.S. District Court judge, does he have the right to ask these questions? And she's, effectively saying no, because we have jurisdiction over this. And so the fact that he's coming forward with all these questions is kind of silly in her estimation. It echoes what we heard from Stephen Miller.
So you called the judge's order just earlier today, quote, patently unlawful, end quote, and said that it was an assault on democracy itself. Does that mean that the administration is ignoring this order, and might you ignore future court orders that meet the criteria you laid out?
The President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of this country, men like John Adams, was written explicitly to give the President the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. That is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to enjoin, to restrict, or to restrain any way. You can read the law yourself. There's not one clause in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review.
So, Stephen, when you say that this person has no authority at all, this is how our system works. It starts with these judges and then continues up. At what point does it become, in your view, legal for the justice system to be looking at this and making a judgment? And I fail to see how there's any other way but to start with where we're starting here before you get to eventually the Supreme Court.
Well, so first of all, there's a term in law, justiciable. This is not justiciable. In other words, this is not subject to judicial remedy. When the President is exercising his Article II powers to defend the country against an invasion or to repel a foreign terrorist that is unlawfully in the country, he's exercising his core Article II powers as Commander-in-Chief.
Is Venezuela invading the U.S.?
Right. So he's exercising his powers as Commander-in-Chief. So now they're going to get at, well, are we at war with the U.S.? If we're technically not at war with the U.S., then if Congress doesn't approve this, then you can't actually do it. And I think that's where you're going to find this get sort of stuck. Because you would think, again, I think Stephen Miller is extremely bright and a very strong reader of constitutional law, as are some of the lawyers that have been looking at this for some time and had the last 4 years, frankly, to be looking at this stuff. And so they're going to come out on the side that the Department of State absolutely has the ability to determine these peoples are enemies of the state, and if they are part of this particular gang, which is coming from Venezuela, and they have been sent in any way, shape, or form by the likes of Nicolas Maduro, then reality is we have the right to kick them out. But, it's just a little bit annoying, right? Think about, there's so many things that we should be doing right now, and here we are getting stuck in this lawfare thing all over again. I think the difference is, at least this time, the administration is moving towards the end zone really quickly, right? They've got the ball, they're taking it, they're running with it, as opposed to getting immediately put on defense as they did once before with Russia, Russia, Russia. You know that drill. Don't forget to subscribe. The deadline is noon tomorrow, so we'll have more on it coming up ahead of 12 noon on Thursday. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe.